Something that I think is really interesting about you, I brought up at the beginning, you've been a trailblazer since the very beginning, and it kind of started for you back in 1974 when you became the first woman to ever be offered a full athletic scholarship. Because that had never been done before, what was your reaction when UCLA offered you one?
Well, you look back in 1974, and Billie Jean King had played Bobby Riggs, and in 1972, Title IX had passed as a law. Which it's interesting that there are a lot of lawmakers that are trying to get rid of Title IX or change it, which is unfortunate. But it's become the calling card of women in sports. My brother David was at UCLA already. He was playing for Coach John Wooden. And his roommate his junior year was a guy named Kenny Washington, who had played for Coach Wooden on two of his championship teams. And he was the women's basketball coach. And so they came home one day on a weekend for a barbecue and basically said, how would you like to go to UCLA and play basketball on a scholarship? And I said, okay. And that's kind of how I was recruited. But fortunately, to be the first was very special, and to have my brother there his senior year when they would win Coach Wooden's last championship team in '75 was very, very special. And, it wasn't the first time that things like that were happening for me. And again, so many other people had opened doors for me, like a Billie Jean King, like my sister Patty, or a Wilma Rudolph, or a Babe Diedrichson back in those days. And so there were a lot of people that helped me through the door.
Yeah, I had have some family members that went to UCLA. I know my co-host who's not here today, Annabelle Hasselback, has a brother that's going to UCLA. I know it's such a special school. So what are some of your favorite memories of being a Bruin?
Well, one, to be able to go to the school in the first place. UCLA has really shaped me in my life and in my career, the people that I've met. Certainly my brother being there, and his senior year, which was my freshman year, and to be a part of what he went through in winning a championship was very, very exciting and fun, and the family was very involved. Being around Coach Wooden and Coach Cunningham and Coach Bush, and my senior year, it would be Billy Moore, who would coach me, who was my Olympic coach in 1976, which was the very first time they had women's basketball in the Olympics. And Billy Moore had coached my sister Patty at Cal State Fullerton to a championship. So just the people that I met, the teammates that I had in all the different sports, learning from different coaches all throughout my career, and how they impacted me, and even the professors. And Professor Art Friedman, who taught broadcasting classes, really directed me where I am today in my life and my career as far as broadcasting, almost 45 years now. And just an impact that so many people had in my life going to a school like that.
How would you describe the impact that Coach Wooden had on you?
Oh, it's tremendous. I mean, just, the pyramid of success, and live each day as your masterpiece. Failing to prepare is preparing to fail. And just, I mean, so many different things. But watching him, I was able to, my freshman year, be able to go to the practices and watch my brother and all his teammates and go through the routine of what they did, which we did my freshman year with Kenny Washington. And to watch the repetition and the practices and to be at the games. And he always had an open door for me. After he retired, he was still at UCLA and had an office. But I would go in his office and talk to him and Coach Cunningham, who was one of his assistants. And I was very much a part of the men's athletic program, because the women's program hadn't really kind of materialized quite yet. And so they really kind of took me under their wing as Dave Meyers' little sister. But even after my husband, Don Drysdale, passed away, and even before, Coach Wooden was very involved in my children's lives, and we would go visit him and so forth. He just was a special person that helped guide me, not just athletically, but personally and emotionally.
UCLA is obviously used to be part of the Pac-12 conference. I was a Pac-12 fan growing up. I was a Pac-12 student athlete. I even worked for the networks. It was where I started my career right after college. And something that I loved about the Pac-12 conference is just the fact that the women's sports there were so strong and that they got so much publicity there. What do you think will be the lasting legacy of the Pac-12 conference? It's obviously changing right now, but what do you hope will always stay?
Well, I think one of the things on the women's side was that you had tenure. You had coaches that were there, and I think there was a respect factor too with the Pac-12. I'm really upset and disappointed still. The Pac-12, over 100 years old, and for it to disband, one of the great conferences in this country. And I think it's a shame that football couldn't have handled things a little bit better in the schools. But, obviously life changes. What is it? Progress is change. Change is not always progress, but in this sense, it's about the money and the networks and the conferences and tightening things up and so forth. So I think the Pac-12 will always have a historical group. Even you look at what happened with the Rose Bowl and the Rose Parade and so forth. Not the Rose Parade, but just the Rose Bowl game. It's always a Pac-12 team against the Big Ten. And now that kind of changes. But, just the rivalries that each team had, whether it was UCLA and SC or ASU and University of Arizona or Washington State, Oregon State. I mean, they were just such great competitors and rivalries. And I think the students really backed that. That was so much fun to be a part of the student council, or the students coming in and supporting the teams. And I think that will be missed. I think it'll be a lot different because, saying SC against Maryland or UCLA against Penn State, that doesn't, or, it just doesn't seem to have the same kind of draw. But, you got to move on and things change. But I'm just grateful that I was a part of that.
Yeah, definitely. I have a lot of really great Pac-12 rivalry memories as well. And also just talking about basketball, I went to Stanford, and Tara Vanderveer was obviously an amazing women's basketball coach. And I remember
Absolutely.
One of the first stories that I covered as a student reporter at Stanford was on the women's basketball team. And I'll never forget her kindness, and everything that she's done for women in sports is just awesome.
Tara and I played against each other.
What do you remember about playing against Tara?
Well, not much. It was at a tournament, and I was a freshman, and I think she was either a junior or senior. And but she recalls us playing against each other at the tournament. And again, things were so different. You didn't have all these accolades as All-Americans and all these Player of the Years and so forth. That was just starting, and they had the NWIT. That was new. Back in the 70s and so forth. Now they've got all these different competitions, and just the NCAA tournament, which is big. And so the fact is, Tara is so much a part of the history as Pat Summitt, who Pat and I played on the Olympic team together. She was Pat Head at the time, but from Tennessee, and a Billy Moore and a Jody Conrad and a Kay Yao and a Sue Gunner, and just so many great women coaches that we've had throughout the course of women's basketball in college. So grateful to be around that time.